Nearly 5 years ago, a social studies teacher candidate named Archie spent his student teaching experience in an urban public middle school. Archie's cooperating teacher, Mr. Jones, knew little of his practice as he was new to his faculty program. Through observation and reflection as journal entries, school faculty and Archie's supervisor came to know Mr. Jones' teaching, one that is controlled, purely teacher-centered, and not engaging, totally opposite to Archie's pedagogical repertoire. When Archie tried but failed his attempt to implement student-centered, authentic, and culturally relevant pedagogies, Mr. Jones explained his students are predominantly students of color and living in poverty. They couldn't handle such teaching. Instead, they need structure, order, direction, and more, Mr. Jones claimed. And at some point in his student teaching experience, Archie resigned himself to imitate his CT's pedagogy. Archie shared he didn't want to teach in an urban or city school ever again.
Good day, everyone. I hope you were able to grasp the existing problem in Archie and Mr. Jones' situation. Archie's experience will be our basis for today's discussion, and it'll be a topic very related to practice teaching and placement in the future. Today, also, we are going to have a discussion that revolves around a solution initiated by University of Minnesota, led by Beaton and JB Mayo. It is called Reciprocity and Relationship, Urban Preparation Through Partnership. Okay, now let's talk about Archie's student teaching experience in the partner school, in the school that he was deployed. For decades, researchers have told stories of teacher candidates uh, who learned to teach in urban classrooms the same way Archie experienced it. It is called, or Dr. Martin Haberman called it, pedagogy of poverty. It is a kind of classroom that emphasizes control over curiosity, content over critical thinking, and is dominated by teacher-centered direct instruction where students, many of whom are students of color, just like Mr. Jones' students, see no connection between the curriculum and their lives. This is because the application of the teacher or in the instruction is purely teacher-centered. It's not a student-centered kind of teaching where students have the students may own or will own their learning. Instead, teachers direct and control the flow of learning, the flow of teaching and the learning process, as well as uh, their behavior or the management of the classroom. If you can remember any of these following situations that probably one of your teachers before may have did in your classroom, Dr. Haberman categorized them as part of the pedagogy of poverty. These are giving information or like directly stating informations, not allowing the students to actually look for them or be able to imply, yeah, something like that. Asking questions. Another is giving directions, making assignments, monitoring seat work, reviewing assignments again, and giving tests, reviewing tests. Now, why is Archie's experience a big problem both for his university or his teacher education program and the partner school? First is because students achieve neither minimum level of life skills nor what they are capable of learning. Again, the classroom atmosphere that is created by constant teacher direction and student compliance to the directions seeds with passive resentment that sometimes bubbles up into an overt resistance. Teachers burn out because of emotional and physical energy that they must expend to maintain their authority. every hour of the day. This is very, very true, because in a um, teacher-centered pedagogy, in order for a teacher to really impose authority and be able to control the classroom in, in an entire day, he or she must be able to have all the energy and all the strategies to really make them believe that this is what is right and this is what must be done in the duration of our class. And so it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of idea from the it takes a lot of authority from the teacher to really make that very possible. Again, however, Dr. Haberman stated that he does not blame teachers or solely teachers in with pedagogy of poverty, because he believed, or he stated, that teachers also follow scripted kind of teaching, and so they are very expected to have to follow the script, or like the flow, because um, that is what the system believes to be the path of learning for the students. Another reason why it is a problem, both for the teacher education institution and for the partner school, is students reward teaching is that below the facade of control is another more powerful level on which students actually control, manage, and shape the behavior of their teachers. Students reward teachers by complying. They punish by resisting. In this way, students mislead teachers into believing that some things work while other things do not. By this dynamic, urban children and youth effectively negate the values promoted in their teacher education, and undermine the non-authoritarian predispositions that led their teachers to enter the field. And yet, most teachers are not particularly sensitive to being manipulated by students. They believe they are in control and are responding to students' needs, when in fact they are more like hostages responding to the students' overt or tacit threats of non-compliance and ultimately disruption. There are two forces that are like invisible, but are too powerful, uh, coexisting in a classroom that has, or that adheres to pedagogy of poverty. Unknowingly, teacher may think that she or he has the control, and however, in a sense, he or she may just be responding to what her or his students expects from her, just so they won't resist, or just so they won't overreact and be antisocial, or be disengaged. And third problem is it does not cultivate teacher candidates' professional identities and pedagogical repertoire. One of the biggest reason why there is practice teaching or placement of student teachers or teacher candidates in in urban schools, or in, you know, real schools, is to actually develop and to cultivate the student teachers' pedagogical repertoire. It is also to apply um, philosophies and theories that we as student teachers learn within the fence, or within our teacher education institution, and apply it to the real life setting, which is in within a partner school. However, the situation of Archie, it does not actually support or cultivate his his professional identity, because in the video, as you can remember, he ended up mimicking Mr. Jones' pedagogy, which is by, you know, giving information, and then projecting informations, and then allowing his students to copy everything that is being projected. And it's a very sad thing, because in the social studies or social science field, social studies education, I feel like even in the Philippines, it is a reality. Majority of the teachers that I have I had uh, practiced such kind of teaching where informations are written in the board and or in the book, of course, in the textbook, and they would just allow us to like read it, and then with no engaging, without any engaging activity that will actually guide us or motivate us to actually accept the information that we probably read or heard, and that is very very sad thing. Just like Archie, the experience of other teacher candidates in the field that somehow lowered their will and vision to implement authentic pedagogy, student centered, constructivist, and culturally relevant teaching struck a nerve with faculty members of a licensure program as well as teacher education institutions grounded in the tenets of good teaching. By good teaching, I mean authentic pedagogy, student centered, engaging. It does not develop his pedagogical repertoire, as I've said earlier, because it was purely mimicking. And if you, we can also imply that somehow Archie was kind of disappointed and, you know, it, he was demotivated. And it's very, very, demotivation is very, very sad because, again, I feel like motivation is one of the biggest factor that, pushes a teacher to actually invent many engaging strategies for his or her students. Field experiences in social studies teacher education are spaces designed to cultivate teacher candidates' professional identities and pedagogical repertoire. Again, however, in order to maximize potential for teacher learning, these spaces must align with the goals and values of the teacher education program. This kind of alignment occurs most frequently when teacher education programs develop intentional relationship with school. In Archie's situation or experience, there is clearly misalignment of or of relationship between the teacher education program or institution and the partner school. I believe that if there was a proper connection between the two or communication, I believe that they would be able to come up with um, with an agreement that Archie may be allowed to do this and do that, and probably Mr. Jones will guide Archie instead of telling him to copy or mimic his pedagogy, something like that. The problem here is the problem here involves both the teacher education institution, or in this case, the licensure program, and the partner school. They need to ensure the teacher candidates will be able to have an opportunity to apply their pedagogical knowledge and skills in practice. One of the aims is also that the students will also be able to understand his or her role in the larger whole of the profession and the extended operational environment of the school. Aside from Archie's experience and the problems that we were able um, to unravel in his experience with Mr. Jones, um, we are also going to discuss about the issues and reality of urban school placement before we discuss about the solution that University of Minnesota, led by Jihan, Beaton, and JB Mayo, were able to, to craft. And so let us continue discussing about the problems. First, for prior to the partnership with STHS, the Social Studies Initial Licensure Program found it difficult to place its teacher candidates in high-quality urban classrooms where the pedagogy paralleled the theoretical pillars of the program. Before, they have this authentic intellectual work, or AIW, which is a framework that promotes student work and assessment that allows for students construction of knowledge, inquiry based in discipline specific concepts, and connections to the world beyond the classroom. Students engaged in authentic intellectual work participate in higher order thinking, deep knowledge, and substantive conversations about ideas that are relevant and meaningful beyond the school walls. Basically, AIW is It sounds very student centered and very engaging. However, the problem here is teacher education programs expect operating teachers to model their teaching practices to their teacher candidates. This is before the implementation of Jihan's solution. So before, with AIW, teacher education program, expect operating teachers to model their teaching practice to their teacher candidates. By model, it means to allow student teachers to mimic or to copy or to learn from them or or maybe practice it also. Uh, Something related to what Mr. Jones did with Archie, and view that practice as a fundamental element of mentoring for cooperating teachers. Yet, as Samara and Gismond 1998 comment on the perplexing nature of field experience, our program sought to avoid placements that would immerse teachers' candidates in poor teaching models that they might mimic. Unfortunately, we were not always successful in the endeavor. So again, before the solution, the situation back then was actually to model, to allow, to expect, I mean, teacher education program expect um, operating teachers to model their pedagogy or teaching practices to the student teachers, which is, I think, is not really, really good because modeling or allowing them to mimic that teaching style is like saying you can only grow from here. We are trying to, we really hope for, I mean, to have teachers that actually can think of a lot of strategies to solve the still existing problem of students finding social studies boring and civic education not properly imposed and not properly felt by the students. And I think this is one of the big problems that or issues that also are reality in urban school placement. Standardized testing and teacher evaluation further dissuade talented teachers from taking on a teacher candidate as traditional students teaching placements leave their students in the hands of inexperienced first-time teachers, just like Mr. Jones. The tensions caused by serving as a cooperating teacher have been discussed in previous research. As an example, identifies multiple Coroner 1992 identifies multiple consequences to taking on student teachers, including the interruption of established rhythms, schedules, and instruction, the displacement of the classroom teacher, and a change in the autonomy and control of the classroom teacher, and a distraction from primary purpose of the classroom, teacher, her students' learning, in order to mentor the teacher candidate. Still on the issues and reality of urban school placement, there is also a problem with structural complications. In the U.S., there is a high rate of teacher turnover. Mirroring a nationwide trend, our local urban schools or their local urban schools face high rates of teacher turnover and consequently a smaller pool of tenured social studies teachers to tap as cooperating teachers. Thus, our field or the field placement coordinator often found herself scrambling to place teacher candidates in urban classrooms at all, much less in placement that embodied the AIW tenets espoused. These structural complications, compounded by resulting indiscriminate placements, contributed to a concern that the urban student teaching classrooms experienced by our teacher candidates had the potential to perpetuate stereotypes and confirm rather than interrupt deficit thinking about students of color, students in poverty, and urban schools in general, just like Archie. Now that we have already discussed the problems and the issues or the reality of urban placement, now let's talk about the solution that was crafted in response to those problems, or because of those existing problems, the University of Minnesota Social Studies initial licensure program took a leap of faith and shifted one of its secondary methods course off campus and to a third floor classroom in a struggling city high school, one we will call STHS or Southeast Tech, with 90% of its students identifying as people of color and 65 as bilingual, 90% qualifying for free or reduced lunch. So basically, yes, STHS is an urban school with a very, very diverse student student body. Um, because of those problems, uh, the University of Minnesota, led by Beaton, came up with reciprocity and relationship, urban preparation through partnership. So in the picture, you can see uh, University of Minnesota shaking hands with STHs. Basically, that means an agreement. They're helping each other to secure a very meaningful experience, teaching experience for their student teachers. So basically, the solution or this program, reciprocity and relationship, started with Beaton um, facilitating for uh, student teachers from University of Minnesota uh, doing their practice teaching in STHS. And this became the birth of urban preparation through partnership. Uh, as you can see, there are four main points that discuss about this partnership. First is um, this partnership liaison is to facilitate and support bridge building between the real world knowledge of STHS teachers and staff in the school's context or STHS context and the academic and theoretical knowledge of campus-based teacher education courses and faculty. Again, this is, a collaboration and an application of, the real scenario or the real um, real setting in STHS and the application of um, theoretical knowledge from the university where teacher residents work as they complete their residency program. The University of Minnesota and STHS partnership liaison with a foot on either side of the school or university divide, served as a primary boundary crosser for STHS and the social studies uh, individualized learning plan or ILP, carrying knowledge, practices, and perspectives to be communicated until relationships were strong enough to do so without liaison support. Something like that. Second is, and this is kind of related to our to the first point. However, in the previous program or before this or prior to this partnership liaison, prior to this, the previous liaison, which is the professional development so the schools or PDS, um, where a teacher candidate must separate herself from her native culture, which is the public, or from the university where she's from, undergo an initiation under fire, or struggle to gain the trust and respect of either the public school or university faculty, and then return to their home culture with newfound insights. With PDS, teachers or student teachers are expected to separate herself from the culture that from the culture that she's from, and then she has to learn the culture or the practices from the school, the partner school, and then bring it back to the university when her residency ends. So, however, in partnership liaisons, teachers are expected to make use of those culture and actually contextualize it, something like that. Number three, um, harkens towards the partnership liaison harkens towards Peter Murrell's description of community teacher. So what is this community teacher? Community Community teachers draw on richly contextualized knowledge of culture, a community identity in their professional work with children and families in diverse urban communities. Their competence is evidenced by the effective pedagogy in diverse community settings, students' achievement, and community affirmation and acknowledgement of their performance. Further, community teachers are seen as being someone of the community, if not necessarily from the community, familiar with the contextualized cultural practice necessary to teach successfully within the community. Well, this is still in relation to point number two. Number four is um, securing high-quality urban placement became a shared responsibility reliant on horizontal expertise and reflective of reciprocal needs. Now, this is the very important aspect of this partnership liaison because so it the placements were no longer determined simply by the quality, interest, and/or availability of the cooperating teacher, but additionally the potential capacity of the teacher candidate to succeed in a high-poverty, diverse setting such as STHS during his or her field experience and beyond. What Beaton and University of Minnesota did is actually to have student teachers before placement to have them or to allow them to visit the school that they think they would fit in or be able to contribute a lot. So it means that for there is the student teachers are allowed to really see for themselves uh, firsthand the kind of reality that they are going to face when deployed or when placed. Through partnership, STH's cooperating social studies teachers advised the program to place potential teacher candidates only after spending an extended visit on site first. The partnership lies on there is also establishment of co-teaching model for student teaching. Rather than turning over the classrooms to the teacher candidate just weeks into the teaching experience, Southeast Tech operating teachers embarked on a collaborative teaching model emphasizing relationship-based mentoring and shared intentional co-teaching strategies and joint co-planning. The liaison scheduled visits for ILP students to tour the school and meet with potential cooperating teachers. The pre-placement visits to the school also enable teacher candidates to spend time in classrooms with STHS students and experience the school culture firsthand before agreeing to an extended placement. Also, through the connective role of the partnership liaison, practical knowledge from our partner teachers or from the partner teachers could be carried out back to the social studies ILP and factored into uh, pragmatic pragmatic changes due to the issues that were being observed and the solution that was carried out to respond to those issues. It actually also resulted to crafting or like redesigning placement or teacher education, a student teacher placement, and of course, the relationship redesign and redefinition of the relationship between a teacher education program or institution and a partner school. In PNU, I think this should also be done. I think it is very important to have to allow practice teachers to actually see firsthand before entering or before extending the placement agreement or yes teaching experience to actually see what kind of reality there is outside the walls of the university first. So I think we should be investing a lot of strategies into it, including the application of this one. I think this will be very fruitful. I think it will really mold us to the kind of teachers that not only we want for ourselves, but the country wants us to be. And inang pamatasan. I think this ends my report, and thank you for listening.